Hi, I'm Angela Walters from Quilting is My Therapy, and this is the Free-motion Challenge Quilting Along. Through this video series, I'm sharing some of my favorite designs for common quilt blocks. In this video, we're going to be talking about triangles. I'm going to show you some designs for quarter square triangles or X blocks. Hopefully, by the time we're done with this challenge, you won't find triangle-shaped blocks intimidating at all. Sometimes you might look at a design and think it seems pretty basic on its own. But when you consider what it might look like when used in multiple blocks, sometimes that secondary pattern can really create a wow factor. The shape I'm quilting in the triangles is pretty basic in how it goes together, but when I recreate that shape in all 4 triangles of the block, the result is an interesting looking motif that was all created by one simple shape. Starting from one corner, I'm going to quilt a diagonal line that ends about 1 inch or 2 away from the top corner. Then I'm going to quilt a line that echoes the longest side of the triangle. Remembering this will help make sure that I quilt the design correctly, no matter which position the quilt is in. Then I'm going to work my way to the opposite corner to create the first part of my design. Now what's great about this, once I know the basic way that shape goes together, all I have to do is recreate it in all 4 triangles. And since the design ends at the opposite corner that I started from, I'll be able to work my way around the block, returning to my starting point without breaking thread. In theory, the points of this design should all match up in the center to form a square. And if they don't match up perfectly, don't worry about it. Just get it as close as you can and continue along. And if I've quilted it correctly, I'll end up back where I started. Once I've quilted that basic design in all 4 triangles, I have a much more complex looking design. If I'm quilting larger blocks, or if I want to add a little bit more detail to the block, I can do the same thing in the space left between the edge of the block and the design itself. After I go around the block the first time, I can do the same thing, working my way around the block, filling in that triangle space between the design and the edge of the block. You can also use this design to break up larger blocks. If I think my triangles are too large to quilt this design, I could break them in half by imagining that I have a seam right down the center. I can either eyeball that, or I can use my handy stencil to quickly find those crosshair points. And then once I have my little triangle defined, I can quilt that same shape in each of them and create a really unique looking motif. Even though I'm at the point of this bigger triangle, I'm looking to this area right here as a triangle that I'm going to fill in. I'm going to use the quilting in this area to return back to the center. And then I'm going to keep doing that in all the sections of the block until I'm done. If you don't have a ruler or you don't want to quilt such geometric straight lines, you can replace them with curved lines and get a nice soft effect that still looks intricate and interesting. The curvy version goes together just the same as the geometric. I'm going to quilt a curved line that ends about 1 inch from that corner block, another curved line that goes to the opposite side, and my third curved line to take me on to the next corner. And when continued throughout all the triangles of the block, it's going to create a curvy looking motif. Now let's look at another one of my favorite designs for blocks of this kind. If I want to highlight the main seam of the block, or really give my quilting a geometric look, I'm going to use echoing, but not the echoing that we've seen so far. It's going to give us a different, more modern look, but I love how easy it is to quilt. Normally I would start from one corner and work my way to the other side, but I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to the middle because it'll make a lot more sense when you can see how it goes together. I'm going to quilt a line that echoes the side of my block, but I'm going to stop about 1/4 inch from the actual seam. Then I'm going to echo that seam about 1 inch or so and return to the side I started from. And then you can see that first kind of geometric shape. And I'm going to repeat the same thing, quilting another line that echoes the side of the block, that echoes the seam, and back to the side I started from. These lines are quilted closer together and these lines are quilted further apart. That's just going to really help this shape stand out more than the background. And I'm going to keep going until I run out of room, even if that means my last segment is a little smaller. I'm going to try to keep it as symmetrical as possible. So I'm going to do the same number on both sides. This spacing between the design and the seam of the block is really going to echo it and bring it out. Now I'm going to do the other side, quilted wedges in the other triangle. You can add as many or as few of these sections as you'd like. You can vary the spacing between the lines, you can make them closer together, further apart. It really just depends on how dense you want your quilting. Using the reference lines on your ruler will help you keep it consistent no matter what size you decide to quilt them. Using different amounts of spacing in between your lines can create a really interesting effect as well. In this block, I've quilted the center wedge the largest and made them smaller as they go out, just to give it a different look. But no matter what spacing you use, it's amazing how just a little bit of echoing can really highlight a certain part of your block. Now let me show you another way that you can use echoing to highlight a different portion of your block. If I'm working with a larger triangle, I love to use echoing to make the block more manageable. So what I'm going to do is add a couple of echo lines to break it up a little bit. Using my Chevy ruler, I'm going to quilt an echo line that's about 1 inch away from the seam. Even though Chevy's going to give me a nice 90-degree angle, I'm not actually going to go all the way around it in one movement. If I do that, the spacing between the needle and the edge of the foot is going to create a more rounded look for my design. So what I'm going to do is, as I approach the end, I'm going to stop and reposition the ruler to the front and then continue along this side. It's going to give me that nice sharp corner, and not having to rotate the ruler means I'm going to get the quilting done even quicker. Now that I've used the quilting to break up that bigger block into a smaller shape, I can go ahead and fill in the 2 areas I have left behind. And I think I'll fill in the outer space of the block with some wishbones. It doesn't matter what you put in between the lines. The most important thing I want you to take away from this is that you can use those echo lines to break up the space and make it easier to manage. And then maybe do some echo lines inside of here. And now that I've used the quilting to break that up and make it a little bit easier to manage, I can put whatever I want in that design. And why not do a little bit of continuous curve? So whether you add wishbones or don't, or you echo the line twice or more, for those larger blocks, be sure to use the quilting to break up the space and make it easier to manage. Okay, are you ready for your challenge? If you're quilting along with me on the custom panel, go ahead and quilt the X blocks on your quilt. And as always, you can use the designs that I've showed you or create your own. It's up to you. And don't forget, I have the free quilting diagrams and tip sheet that you can download, and you can find the information about that, as well as links to the panel and any other information in the description box below. Happy quilting!